Live. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and I'm hanging out with Paige Leitman today, and we're going to be talking about D&D, RPGs, and whatever else comes forth from our stream of consciousness. How are you doing today, Paige?
I'm actually doing really great. I understand the lock-in is rough on people, but I'm very privileged. Like, I can still work from home. My husband and I love being snowed in together, and I'm playing more games now than I ever have at any point in my life. So, like, this isn't terrible for me.
You just brought up one of my great disappointments. Not being snowed in enough since I left my previous life in heavy construction, because we would do snow removal in the winter, so I was not a fan of it. And like I had a big commute to work, as we were discussing earlier as well. It was like an hour drive, and in a snowstorm, not fun.
No.
But now my family looks at me weird when I'm like, come on, bring on the snow. We'll go out there, we'll shovel. It looks pretty to look at, but absolutely.
Yeah, no, see, I'm a Southerner, born and raised, and I am neither mentally nor physiologically capable of handling snow. So, like, when Atlanta sees 3 snowflakes, we just shut the whole city down. The last time there was a real snow here, people were actually, like, leaving their cars on the interstate and trying to walk home. It was bonkers.
I can only imagine. It can get nasty, even if
Yeah.
even if you are kind of used to dealing with it. But then it's funny.
It was like a whole inch of snow.
Well, it's funny, you go even further north and they're like, whatever. They're living in snow kingdoms where everything's carved out.
Right.
It's good inspiration for D&D anyway.
Yeah. So D&D. So normally, this was my normal pre-virus D&D schedule. Monday night was our podcast D&D, which is the Feats and Fables podcast. I'm the DM, and we have a bunch of players, and it's good fun. Wednesday night was the other home game. So the Monday night game, we've been playing together for... Well, Coda is the new guy, and he's been there for about 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Wednesday night home game has been going on in various iterations for about 20 years. And
I just hope you still treat them as the new guy, even though it's been 7 or 8 years. Like,
oh, absolutely.
You're the new guy until we get someone else that's newer.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, somebody's going to have to die, but yes, no, we dump on Coda all the time. And then the Wednesday night game's been going on for about 20 years with different iterations. Currently, my husband's running it, but we've all run it at one time or another. And that has been many things. It's been Saltmarsh. It's been Legend of the Five Rings. And so that was Wednesday night. And then every Sunday night, I had a game that I was running online because it's with a bunch of my friends who are MMO friends. So I've got one in Texas, one in Ohio, one in Wisconsin. So they're people I have to play virtually with. So I've been running that game on Roll20 for years. 2, 3, 4 years. And now more like 4 or 5 years. So that, and life was good. That's 3 games a week, and then occasional other games. I used to have another game with some friends of mine, but somebody moved, it kind of fell apart. But that was a lot of D&D, especially since I have like an hour and a half, an hour commute each way back and forth to work. Then comes coronavirus, lockdown. I just got 3 hours a day back. And what that says to me is not only do I need to play more D&D, I can be super extra about it. So the Saltmarsh game changed to Werewolf and went virtual to Roll20. The Monday night game went from me running the podcast to us playing Star Trek Adventures together, the Modifius version, and online, and somebody else is DMing that, so I can create more content for Feats and Fables. And then someone else said, oh, you're playing Star Trek? I really like Star Trek. Can we play Star Trek? So Ben is now running Star Trek Brunch on Sunday morning. And then another friend of mine had a job, and his job was a good one. He drove the bus for high school field trips to DC and Williamsburg and other places. And it was a good job, and he liked it, and he's very much a people person. So he could talk to people all day long, and he got to travel, and it was good fun and pretty good pay. he lost his job, obviously, in the first couple of weeks of lockdown. And he's like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? And I'm like, you're a great DM. You love people. What about learning how to DM online? That can be a good side hustle for you. He's like, excellent. I need to practice. I'm running Vampire on Tuesday nights. So I'm now in 5 games a week, and it's awesome.
That is a lot of games.
It's a lot of games. It's a lot of games. But one thing that makes one a better player and also a better DM, in my opinion, is to play a lot of different games with a lot of different DMs, with a lot of different characters, so you can iterate to what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For the longest time, we would run monthly games, and they were in-person games. And Ted would run a 5e game, I would run a 5e game, and then we had a third person that would come in and run just something different. Mm-hmm. And they were all different configurations of our friend groups, mm-hmm. you know. So when it was nice when we'd have the other GM come in, because they were just like a sponge for sucking up new games. And their database of knowledge in our head was just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't imagine how they were like kind of like a higher end executive type. So I'm like, how do you have time to absorb all these new rule sets and do your day to day? But yeah, so I agree. Running,
not sleep, apparently.
Not sleep, yeah. But yeah, I agree. Like, the more you can get around other people and other games is going to make you better. That's actually one of the things that we're a little sad about, is we don't play enough other games. It's just too much time consumption. But now I think that's about to change.
Hey! I mean, there's a silver lining. This is a tragedy. What is going on right now is absolutely a national tragedy. I'm going to stop there before I go into politics, because it's not that kind of podcast. But it's a national tragedy. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. And there are some silver linings.
Yeah, and you talked about being fortunate. Like, I'm fortunate because I've been working home for the last couple years, and then Ted his day job is working from home for a tech publishing company. You know, so we've been really lucky about that, and his schedule is super flexible, so it hasn't affected us too much. Like, just our weekly video shoots that we just do them virtual now, and the quality isn't quite what we're used to, but we deal with it because it's the way things are.
Yeah, you have to. And the thing is, as I said, this is a national tragedy. It is a terrible thing, and I wish this had never happened. And another silver lining is, particularly for the old farts like me, this is the goad that makes it necessary that we learn how to game online. And I think that is ultimately going to be very good for the hobby, because that means there's going to be a wider pool of people that are available to play. Because a lot of people are playing online now that have never played online before, never thought about playing online. But now that you try it, because you don't have any choice, you have to. And you find out it's not that bad, and you get the kinks out, and you figure out how to work Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or Virtual Tabletop, whatever makes you happy. Like, I think there's going to be a lot, when this is all over, which I pray is soon, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, yeah, like, nobody in my city is free to play D&D on Thursday nights at 9 p.m., and that's the time that I have available. Wait a minute, I can play online. There will be somebody. I mean, there's thousands of people available Thursday nights at 9 p.m. to play D&D online.
It goes from being who's available in your town to who is available in the universe. Yep.
And I think that's ultimately going to be really good. And I said, old farts like me, I will be 50 next year. I have been playing D&D since 1981 or 2. And I have been running this one online game for years, but I'm like, online is second best to real life gaming and whatever. But this has really forced me to sharpen up my online DMing and my online playing skills. And that's great. That's great. A lot of people are really starting to grok playing online, and that will only be good for the hobby.
So if anybody has questions, just drop a question in front of it so we can pick them out easily. But Joe wants to know, what do you recommend for those of us who have the inability to get any VTT to work?
Okay. even if you can't get a VTT to work, there's plenty of ways around it. Discord. Like, I believe Discord is just about the lowest common denominator of VoIP programs. You can talk to pretty much anybody in Discord. Discord has an option to show your screen. And when Discord allows you to show your screen, the DM can put their screen up and put, I don't know, like MS Paint up there with a rough battle mat on it, and the DM can move tokens around. And Discord has a bot called Avrae, Avrae. Look up D&D Discord on Google, it'll come up. That is a dice roller. And so you can 100% use Discord or Skype or even Zoom as a hack for a virtual tabletop.
StreamYard is another one.
Okay.
I bring it up because we're playing in a game with Esper the Bard, and he literally uses StreamYard, and I think map tools, and he does just what you said. He shares the screen. He made the tokens. He moves the tokens around. About essentially, like you can have a virtual tabletop without actually having a virtual tabletop.
Yep.
On the very low end of things, and aside from that, in a lot of our games, we just play theater of the mind. We don't even worry about it. You know, just because most of us play that style anyway.
Well, also the nice thing about being able to share your screen, I am. If anybody's ever played any of the adventures my husband and I have written, you know that we are big on props and handouts. like the conversations I had with the bosses about how many handouts I can have with my adventures are hilarious because I want them all. What I love to be able to do is plop up a picture on my screen of you're in the haunted forest. So I Google search for an image of a haunted forest and put it up on my screen because that really adds to the atmosphere. So,
you know, let's dive into that a little bit, Paige. What are some of the things that you do? Because I know you've made some things over on the DMs Guild, podcasting, and in addition to that, I know for a while, I don't know if you still are, you were one of the mods over on the D&D group.
Yep.
Or D&D, yeah, the D&D group over on Facebook.
So I was a mod on the D&D group for Facebook for about 5 years, and I hung up my spurs last fall pretty much. I wanted to take more time out of that and do more writing. Nothing wrong with the group, and I'm not tired of interacting with it. It's just that I needed to take some time back out of my life to put towards writing projects.
That's a super big active group, so that would be very time consuming.
Yeah. And we found out pretty early on, because I was one of the first early active mods, that about 4 or 5% of the population are assholes. And you just have to ban them out, and then the rest of the people are generally pretty nice. But those 4% of the people or 5% of the people you have to deal with are a big problem. So, but in addition to that, which I no longer do, I am one of the hosts of the D&D Roundtable, which is a podcast about D&D news and events. We interview cool people that are working in games right now and are talking about all the different things that are going on. I'm also the DM of the Feats and Fables actual play podcast. We're just about done with our first year of that. My husband and I have written several modules for the D&D Adventures League. In addition, I've participated in some projects like the Forbidden Library and the Savage Encounters, and I don't know, a lot of stuff. I forget at this point. I have a secret project coming out. I guess it was going to come out this year sometime, that I can't really talk about, but that's done, but that'll be big when it comes out. And I have a bunch of adventures kind of in the works. In addition, I have a 20-page, at least, dissertation on the Knolls of Faerun in draft form that I'm working on, because I really love Knolls, and some other writing projects that are kind of percolating in the background.
Nice. I've always enjoyed Knolls myself.
Yeah.
And in the pinned comment, you can find where you can find Paige around the web. So you have a website as well as, on Twitter. You're pretty active as well.
Yeah. Well, we had to have the website with our portfolio on it, my husband and I, because I guess last year or the year before, Bethesda, of all people, took one of the adventures that Ben and I had written and plagiarized it and then put it in Skyrim and published it and gave away, 100,000 free downloads of it. And we didn't have a website at that point. But we got really popular all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I felt like at that point in time, I wanted to make sure that my husband and I had our writing portfolio out there. So if anything ever happened like that again, I could point to our website and say, "Excuse me, sir, this is ours. We have it right here."
Yes.
So.
It does help to have a place where you can digitally stamp it at the very least, because people.
Because people, yeah.
So, Kamo, what are your favorite free resources for online play?
Free resources for online play. So, Google, because Hangouts can do voice and screen share. Google Slides are an excellent place to do like your battle mat, because it kind of works like PowerPoint. Of course, it's free. That's just things to make the thing go, but there's a lot of great free adventures out there. The first part of Death House, or the first part of Curse of Strahd, called Death House, I believe is available free. I think the first part of Storm King's Thunder, which is called Nightstone, is also available for free. There's the Savage Encounters. Savage Seas 3 is actually free, or pay what you want. So that's another great free adventure. If you go to the DM's Guild, there's a lot of great either pay what you want or free adventures that are great material to start people out. But other than that, the Google Suite is great, just great.
So I'm going to jump away from the questions a little bit from the chat. And we were talking about this offline, and that was like how you got started into gaming. And, I'm always curious when I see a woman gamer that is, close to my age, because like it was like unheard of when we were growing up.
So I was like many kids of that age when I was born in 1971, so I'll be 50 next year. And I was the weird kid who liked books about monsters, like we all did at that age, right? So we were in the bookstore because that was a big deal in the early 80s to go to the bookstore. So I was in the bookstore with my mom, and I saw a book about monsters. And it was like this box, and it was red, and it had a dragon on the front, and these people and a torch, and this kind of cool painting. I'm like, "Mom, it's a book about monsters. Buy me the book about monsters." And so she bought me the book about monsters. It was a box about monsters, even better, right? And I took it home, and that book was not a story about monsters at all. And I had no idea what to do with it. I was super confused. There was all these numbers. So it took me a while to kind of read through it, and I'm like, okay, I think I have this figured out. Who wants to play with me? So I went to Heather, one of my best friends, and I said, "Heather, let's play this game." Heck no. "KK, let's go play these games." Heck no. All right, nobody's going to play with me. So my brother is 2 years younger than me, so I bullied my brother and his stinky little friends into playing this game with me because I needed players and they were going to be my players. And I ran Keep on the Borderlands, and that was great. I've been playing D&D ever since.
Does your brother still play?
Oh yeah. I was actually talking to him last night about resources to play online, because he's like, "I'm so sad I can't play D&D." I'm like, "Dude, there's all the D&D world going around right now. You got to go get it." So
much D&D. Yeah. Back in those days, I mean, we kind of talked about it, but for the most part, like the way you got into, from my perspective, the way you got into the game was you knew an older kid that was into the game. As the legend goes,
an older boy.
They were all older boys that I know of. Like I remember my neighbor Ian Wilson coming over with the red box and pulling it out, and I'm like, "What's this?" And then him dragging me to his friend's house down the street, and we played like a session or two of Gamma World. It would be years before it would be another 5 or 6 years before I actually started playing. But even then, it was one of the girls in the neighborhood that was our age. It was her older brother that would like come out and play backyard sports with us every once in a while. He was like the cool kid, but in hindsight, not really.
At the time, he was the cool kid.
Yeah. He was great though, and he was great with us. And like, so he rounded up a bunch of us.
I'm seeing like Steve from Stranger Things.
His name was Steve, actually.
That's funny.
Yeah. He was like in Police Explorers and wanted to be a state trooper and everything. Actually, the story has a sad ending, but but he was the one that really got us going. He gathered up me and 3 other of the neighborhood kids, and we started a D&D group. And he was like 18, 19, 17, somewhere in that age, and we were like good 5 years or more younger than him. Like he was an excellent DM, but he ended up getting leukemia and getting sick, and so like I said, I had kind of like, it's like a bittersweet memory, for that time period. But and that was my perspective, because we even talked about a little bit earlier about game stores, and in our town, which is smaller, we had a comic book store with like one rack with game books on it, and you mentioned bookstores, right? Well, instantly I thought Walden Books and B. Dalton, because
man, those were the days.
Yeah, like you'd go to the mall and they were the 2 bookstores, and I'd like drag my grandparents to both of them and then whine and cry and bitch until they would buy me something.
Yup. That's my childhood right there.
Yeah. Well, and that's when you were talking about it. That definitely made me think of those days for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I did not actually see another woman playing tabletop role-playing games until 1987 or 1988. There was a big con in Atlanta at the time called the Atlanta Fantasy Fair, which has subsequently been swallowed by DragonCon. And at Fantasy Fair, there was like a game room. My memories are really dim. It seemed like hundreds of millions of tables. In reality, it was probably 20 or maybe 30.
Yeah.
And I saw a woman playing D&D across the room, like an actual woman that I could identify as a woman, older than me, playing D&D across the room. But I never got to talk to her. But I did not actually meet and shake hands with another woman who played D&D until I was a junior in college.
For our group, it was probably literally. It wasn't until after we started Nerdarchy that we had ladies that would come game with us. I was older, and kind of built the group around like my younger brother and Ted, who is my my wife's younger brother, and they're friends. So like occasionally, one of them would bring a girlfriend with them, but they were never really interested in the game per se. It was just like, what was their boyfriend doing or whatever. Yeah. It wasn't until later that I'd say we've gotten like actual real gamer women into our group, and it took a long time.
It took a long time, but boy howdy, look where we are now.
Yes.
Look at all the women showrunners. Look at all the women podcast organizers. Look at all the women writers. Look at all the women publishers. And look at all the people of color that are really making an impact on the tabletop games industry. I really have to call out Chris Spivey with Harlem Unbound and the series that he's written. Like, we're in a great place.
Yeah.
And it can get better, and it will, but we're in a good place.
Well, I feel like, especially now with all these games being played online, it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because the problem was, it used to be, I work a weird schedule, and so I can't start playing games till 10 o'clock Thursday night, and nobody else will start a game at 10 o'clock Thursday night with me. Now that we play online, if you need to play a game at 10 o'clock Thursday night, 3 in the morning on Wednesdays, 9:30 in the morning on Fridays, you will find people out there who want to play the game at that same time. You're no longer limited to your geographic region. You got the whole world.
Yeah, you're either going to find someone who also has a weird schedule, because there's plenty of people, or you're just going to find someone in the right time zone.
Yeah, or somebody who lives in Australia.
Yeah, which is awesome. So, Ankili19, what's the weirdest creature you've played as?
Weirdest creature I've played as. I don't know, but here are some memorable ones. At Atlanta Fantasy Fair one year when I was very young, there was a D&D Open, and one of the characters was a unicorn, and I got to play the unicorn, and I was very excited about finding my virgin, which is hilarious when you have a 16-year-old girl role-playing with, I don't know, 15 to 25-year-old boys saying, I found my virgin! I found my virgin! Like, I was wrecking those guys. Wrecking them. There was another game that somebody else was running, and I was playing the paladin, and our town was being besieged by werewolves. My brother was in this game, and if he's listening to this, he's laughing his ass off right now. And my brother was in this game, and I'm playing the very serious paladin. We got to find these werewolves, whatever. I was secretly the werewolf. I ate the whole party. That was pretty good. As a DM, Glabagool, the intelligent gelatinous cube from Out of the Abyss, is really one of my favorites.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I've had a few monster NPCs over the years that people seem to really liked. Gentleman Jack was a Grell. Crime Lord.
Nice.
That had a monocle kind of like wedged into his brain matter. And then Stanley the Beholder was this beholder that was in this psychic mystic prison that he couldn't escape from. Mm-hmm. So he was less inclined to attack people just out of sheer boredom. So my Scarlet Sisterhood game, which was all lady players, just because I'm like, we are online now. I haven't really played with very many women, so I'm going to run a game and just invite women to it. Yeah, and it worked out really good. But those ladies were hilarious and did all kinds of crazy stuff. Most of them were DMs too. Yeah. So, DMs generally make really good players or really terrible players, and these ones all made really good ones. Yeah, so I lucked out. So like they made it their quest to try and free Stanley, which was going to be virtually impossible, except for one of them was a cleric, and they rolled their divine intervention. And I'm like, well, I gotta let this go. So he was a beholder that wore a bowler cap. So that, but it was like a regular sized one, not sized for the beholder. Yeah. And so one of the players made up bowler caps that were undersized for all the other characters. So they did eventually free him, and it went exactly how everyone knew it would go.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
But it was definitely fun up until that point. Yeah. But as far as playing, I don't think we've played too many things. I mean, especially since, and I don't know what people consider weird, because in our games, we've always been fairly liberal with what people want to play, as far as we've never hated gnomes or demi-humans. Yeah. And we've always liked the monstrous races. Yeah. So
in 4th edition in particular, everybody just hold your fire on 4th edition. I liked it. I know you didn't like it. That's fine. We don't all have to like the same things. But I liked 4th edition. And I was playing I want to say Warforged Warden at that point, and a Warden is a very defensive class, and one flavor of Warden could change into all different kinds of things, so I played her as a treant. I said that I was a treant, and I looked like a treant, and I role-played that I, go someplace and hunker down in a planter and just be a tree for a while. And I also had... What else? Oh, and I also had a druid in 4th edition. So druid powers in 4th edition were a little weird. You could just say Spirit of the Fox, and you'd change into something and do something that was fox-like. And so I played her as a kitsune. And the numbers don't change, but I just described everything as kitsune stuff. It was fun.
So here's another question from K Mayo. What was your favorite monster to DM?
Oh, 100% gnolls. I don't even have to think about that. I love gnolls. I love gnolls so much that I have an emergency gnoll figurine in every bag I own. And usually a D22. But I love gnolls, and I have a bajillion gnoll figures. And it's funny because for a long time when I was DMing. All right, the gnolls with bows are actually drow, and the gnolls with that are skeletons are actually driders, and the gnolls with flin bars, or flins with flin bars, are actually like drow house captains. And they're like, Paige, why can't you just use drow figures? I'm like, because I have gnolls. I like them.
Because I have gnolls, and I can't just keep running gnoll after gnoll.
5e. Yeah, no, I love gnolls, and I love hyenas.
5e has the best gnoll lore. Like,
I strongly disagree.
Okay.
I strongly disagree.
What is your favorite gnoll lore?
4th. So in 5e, the gnolls, as described in Bolos, are mindless, hungry killing machines like sharks. They don't have any culture. They don't have any wit. They don't have any cunning or craftiness. They're just straight, savage beasts of butchery, and they're just there to kill things. And that's really all they do. In 4th ed and in 3rd ed and in parts of 2nd ed, gnolls were extremely crafty and cunning. They were still super evil and going to eat you, but they had a mimicry power, and they would mimic voices of people like, oh, help me, I'm a villager, when you come to save them. They had their whole tribes of gnolls with different priorities and different cultures. You had gnoll gods and gnoll culture, and a lot of that is missing from 5th ed. They're scarier in 5th ed, but to me, it is not an upgrade.
Okay.
Hence my dissertation on the gnolls of Faerun that I need to write because Volo was clearly wrong.
Take Volo down a peg or two.
Yeah.
So I would have totally missed the 4e. We played it for like 18 months, but not enough for me to like absorb all the lore. Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't dislike 4e. I was rather indifferent, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, I've always moved to the new edition.
Yeah. I can roleplay in any game. Like, I've roleplayed in games with awful rules. So, man.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, I've played in a bunch of Palladium games, and I kind of think that's one of the worst systems. But I'll play in it if people I like are playing in it, just because I know I'll have fun with those people. The system doesn't matter. But yeah, so now that you talk about like the earlier editions of gnolls, you know, the one thing I don't remember a whole lot. I have a terrible memory and retention of things. But the one thing I do remember is gnolls particularly liking sentient beings to eat because they scream the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is definitely a gnoll thing.
Joe wants to know if you have a favorite dragon.
I do, and because I'm extra, it's actually the Amethyst Dragon, which is a gym dragon, the neutral dragons. I don't think they officially exist in 5th edition yet, but there's plenty of third-party and individual stuff on DM's Guild, but particularly the 3rd edition Amethyst Dragon.
Was that the one that had the explosive loogie?
I don't think so, no.
Because
I don't remember what its breath weapon was, but that I think I would remember.
One of the gem dragons, their breath weapon was an explosive loogie. They all had 3rd
edition for you.
Yeah. they all, because I think they all had, the gem dragons all had 2. Although in the latest Unearthed Arcana, they do mention they make mention of a gem dragon.
Oh, do they? Do they?
Yes. It's one of the origins for the sorcerer.
Oh, neat. Okay.
And I don't remember. It names a specific one. I just read it last night, and I've already forgotten which one specifically it mentioned. But I was like, I wonder if that is a clue to what's coming, you know, what's coming down the road for us.
Yeah.
In fact, Sapphire.
Well, I mean, Theros is next, right?
Theros is one of the next ones coming out. Yeah. But well, I'm trying to figure out we're always trying to figure out where all this Unearthed Arcana is going to get dumped into. But yeah, the last origin thing, it does mention the Sapphire Dragon.
That is very cool.
So that got me wondering. I'm like, what are they going to put that in?
I wonder if that's associated with Sapphire Anniversary of D&D.
Oh, you know what? Maybe they did do
the
monster stats for that, because I did not spend $300 on a set of dice.
Me either, brother. Me either.
I was a little surprised / disappointed Ted did it because he's very much he is very much a collector, and he has a bit of a habit when it comes to plastic and dice.
I cannot throw stones in that glass house. One of the first things my husband and I did when we were in lockdown and we were kind of bored is we went through our shelves, because our shelves are a hot mess, and we found all the dice sets. And apparently we're both hoarders of dice, and I wasn't aware of the scope of the problem until we put them all on the table. And someone said, "Oh, coronavirus, it's probably on your dice because everything else is on your dice." And I'm like, okay. So we washed our dice. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Go wash your dice. Like, put them in a big bucket. Get all of them. Put them in a big bucket. Put some dish soap in there and some warm water and just run your hands through it. It is the most amazing feeling in the world. Definitely go do that.
It's like being a dragon with your hoard of coins.
It is! And they feel really good when they're clean. Like, there's a different tactile difference when they're clean. And it was, like, if you need an endorphin boost, go wash your dice.
I have this weird gaming habit when we play in person.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, you can buy, like, the bag of holding, the bag of devouring of dice.
Yeah.
So I bought pretty much all of them, and and they all pretty much fit in one thing of dice. I have no idea how many dice I have in there, but it's just a sack of dice. My cornucopia of dice, I just dump it out, and then I sort them throughout the game. I don't know why. The other players are like, you could just buy something that keeps them separated, but I'm like, it wouldn't be the same.
Everybody's got their thing. Yeah, I like to keep mine, so I get a little psychological if I can't find every member of a set of dice, and it really bothers me. So probably 10 or 15 years ago, I decided to break myself of that habit by intentionally not buying full sets and just buying a color spectrum of dice that work together. But they're, this is the blue set, so I'll buy 2 of these and 1 of those and 1 of those and 2 of those and 3 of those, so that they can't match. And then that way it satisfies the part of me that is seeking that kind of order. So I have like color themed sets, but I had a light blue set and then I had a dark blue set. Do those really become the blue set? And I had white and I had clear. Does that really? So now that I've washed them all and they're just sitting on a bath towel on my table, I have the fun activity of going through and separating them out into color set groups. I'm super excited.
How gross was that water after you watched the dice?
I didn't look. There are things that I don't want to know. And those dice my dice have more miles on them than some people's cars.
Yeah.
Because there's some old ones in there. And I just didn't want to know. A little dish soap, warm water, wash them around a little bit, dump out the water, put in more water, wash them around a little bit. It was great.
Yeah,
absolutely
some
wonderful.
Questions are better unanswered.
Mm-hmm.
Since you're an old schooler, I'll ask you about this because Shalendor brings it up in the comments. I'm a kobolds or dragon men, not or dogmen, not dragonmen kind of guy.
From a purely historical point of view, that is absolutely correct. And having said that, I like the idea of kobolds as dragon worshippers, dragon servants, dragon minions, because it kind of gives them a more interesting culture, because they're aspiring to something that they can never ever be. And I feel like it gives the kobolds more dimension in their culture to make them dragon minions. Having said that, I 100% fully recognize and understand the fact that kobolds were originally dogmen.
They, I do miss the dogman kobold. They although I would like to see some like revised art of them, but they were kind of like interesting in the sense that they were little dogmen with scales and rat tails. So it made them a little more unique and different than going, we miniaturized the dragon and It gave them a lofty goal they can never achieve.
Yeah, but I have a dear friend named Dave Brainerd who can do just freaking wicked things with kobolds. Like kobolds plus traps, like you can skunk a very high level party with very low level kobolds and traps. And I like the idea that they're really smart and really crafty and really cunning, and that kind of speaks to draconic intelligence. Having said that, if you're a fan of Kobold Dogmen, makes sense that they could do that too. I also really like dogs, and so I don't like killing things that are kind of dog-like.
But dragon-like.
Dragon-like, they're dead. Like, yeah, no hesitation.
Ted ran a dragon hunt adventure for the fans, and he softened them up with kobolds. Some of them are half dragons, but lots of traps that were that would go off like 3-4 feet in the air.
Yep. Yeah, and the 5th edition kobolds are really nice. Like, I really like the stats and culture that they come up with for the kobolds. And
we started experimenting with like some different lore for our dragons. And when our dragons would lay clutches of eggs, instead of them being dragons, they were kobolds and dragonborn.
Okay.
And it was super rare for an actual dragon to be born. So
makes sense. Otherwise, they'd run over the planet, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so we started kind of like building up cultures around that, and to make dragons a little more special, a little bit more rare.
You could even do it where the female dragons would lay eggs, but they would be parthenogenic, so they're not fertilized by a male dragon. They're just created by the female and still viable. And maybe you only get a real dragon when there's been an actual mating, and that's a rare thing.
One of the things we did is actually, like, and it would only be the kobolds that this could happen to, was one would ascend. And it was my buddy's Mark's birthday, so I ran like a one shot where they had to take someone to this pool and this sacred grove, in the mountains, and bathe them in moonlight, and they all got into the pool, and then I randomly determined like one of them was going to be one of the ones to ascend and become a hatchling dragon.
Sure.
And had there been more time, I had been considering like then running, a couple more scenes with them being able to play as the dragon.
Oh, that'd be very cool.
So yeah, so it was kind of fun, and just to do something different.
Sure.
In the campaign setting that we've been playing in, we started it with no dragons. Like we went with this concept that long ago that the dragons rose up and tried to take over. So the gods just swept them into their own pocket dimensions, since they wouldn't play nice with everyone else. And like we started that campaign with one of those dimensions opening up. So now there was a dragon, and also that's how Dragonborn came into our world. To do things a little bit differently. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I just love about tabletop role-playing games, is that they present a world in the book. Like, here's your world. And every single table, every single DM, every single player reads the same set of rules and then comes away with a different interpretation of it. And then you put them all at a table together, and you take all those different interpretations, and they kind of gel into a game world that is not what the people who wrote it meant or wrote about, but is nonetheless super meaningful, super detailed, and super important because it's been filtered and refracted through all these different people's opinions and lives. Love it.
So, and Kelly 19 has a question. I will answer this question, but I'm very biased, and I'm just going to be honest about this part. Do you think it's worth getting the books on D&D Beyond? I like the idea of bringing my iPhone instead of a huge bag of heavy books. So we were probably the second sponsored company by D&D Beyond after Critical Role. We were actually in talks with them while they were talking to Critical Role. And at that point, we were actually deciding whether or not Nerdarchy as a company was going to buy a legendary bundle or not. They became a sponsor, and then we became I forget what they call their brand ambassadors, but they have a specific name for it. And we get all the books from D&D Beyond for free, but we would have bought them anyway. So I've always liked it, and I kind of liked when we had the insider tools from 4th edition, and that's what it kind of reminded me of when it first came out.
Oh, 4th edition was unplayable without the insider tools.
Yeah, so I really like it. Obviously, I'm going to say yes. But, there's also a lot of great free content over there as well.
So here's where I am on Roll20, or on D&D Beyond. I'm an old school gamer. I still have character sheets and a special little memory book from high school written on paper. I've always had the books. Like, I moved around a lot in grad school, like a lot, and I couldn't take all my books with me. But I guarantee you, even my favorite hardbacks got left behind or taken to the used bookstore before my D&D books did. And I have always been a big person on books. And when D&D Beyond came out, I'm like, whatever, I've already bought the books. Whatever, I've already bought the books. And then I started looking at it. And I'm like, this is kind of useful. And then I started running this online game. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's kind of useful to have the online game in the back. Now, couldn't live without it. Absolutely could not live without it. I could not DM without it. I could not play without it. It makes me a better DM. It makes me a better player. And I am 100% behind D&D Beyond. I was very recalcitrant at first, but now that I've tried it, I am 100% a believer.
If you're new coming into the hobby and you're going to buy all this stuff anyway, it is, to me, it's just better and easier.
Yep, I would buy them on D&D Beyond rather than on paper if I could only choose one or the other. Fortunately, my husband and I are double income, no kids, and so we usually buy a hardback book and D&D Beyond.
We also do the same, and I like doing prep from D&D Beyond as well. As I run
so much easier.
I just have a bunch of tabs open when I run games, and that's kind of what I use.
Oh yeah, and as far as writing goes, oh my god, it is so much easier to write with D&D Beyond. It's like, I need a monster, it needs to be CR6, and it needs to be undead. Yeah. What are my options?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
like that easy.
I'll take that. And then I copy the stat block, paste it into my thing, change the formatting, and I'm good to go. Like writing for 3rd edition, oh my gosh, the stat blocks. Oh.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still psychologically scarred from doing stat blocks for 3rd edition. They were awful.
The copy feature is super nice, where if you want to homebrew something and you're like, is there a monster that's close? And you're like, oh, there is. And then you just copy that. And you're like, oh, do I want abilities from other monsters? You could just copy those abilities and port them over. I'm also curious to see what they do in the near future.
Yeah.
So there's my completely non-biased, totally biased opinion.
Plus, they're a genuinely nice company.
Adam is
everybody's
awesome.
Here to make a profit, and for Dragon Con, we had a big charity raffle for. I forgot what the charity of the year was last year. Yeah, don't remember. But they donated a legendary bundle for us to raffle off, proceeds going to charity. They also donated a legendary bundle. Maybe it was 2 legendary bundles at Dragon Con. Might have been 2. And they also donated a legendary bundle for an Extra Life charity thing that was done in Atlanta as well. So they're extremely generous company.
There was definitely a time when Adam was handing those things out like candy. And they are still very generous with that stuff. Every time we've had him on, he's given away at least a legendary bundle.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been cool about the company.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's people that are angry that they have to buy the books twice, but no,
they don't have to. Exactly. Nobody's making them.
Well, they get mad because the truth of the matter is they're mad because they want it, but they don't want to pay for it.
Well, and we saw people bitching about that on the 5th edition group all the time. Why can't I get free PDF when I do this? I'm like, when you buy the Black Panther comic books, did that get you a free movie ticket?
Yeah.
When you watched The Martian, the movie, did that get you a free hardback book? No?
Right, you go to the movies, you get to watch it there, and then if you want it again, you have to pay for it again. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. One more question before we head on out. Elfbait wanted to know, what is your favorite non-D&D RPG?
Don't ask me to pick one of my children I love the most. I refuse to answer that question. I will tell you some of my favorite non-D&D RPGs. Dresden Files RPG, Legend of the Five Rings, previous edition, not the current edition. Deadlands. I love Deadlands. The rules are a hot mess, but meh, great game. Let me see what else we have around here that I really like. So I like the Star Wars Saga Edition, which is 3.5 base. Say what you like. I like that a whole lot. In Nomine is an old game by Asmodee about angels and demons in the modern world. Rules are a mess. Great game. I think that'll do.
So any of the older games, the problem is, like, any game that was made in the 80s, the designers all believed, like, the more charts and tables you could cram into it, the better the game was. But not really.
I feel called out. So true.
Is my take on the earlier games.
Mech Warrior, we're talking to you. Not Mech Warrior, was it BattleTech?
BattleTech, which that was a Palladium.
BattleTech.
That was also Palladium. I owned it, and I didn't even know at the time.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I'm learning these things. I really love Marvel Phase Rip. I still love that game, and will probably always have a soft spot for it. And it kind of went against a lot of the 80s things, because most of the game was run from one chart. It was a D100 system, and it was I think I want to say it's the first game to use XP as a tool in the game other than leveling up.
Oh, and I forgot Call of Cthulhu and the Gumshoe Call of Cthulhu and Knights Black Agents, which is kind of the same system.
And that's it. Yeah. So you look over on your shelf again.
Right? Fortunately, I have my reading glasses on, so I can't see them very well.
But I think, like, later on, we really got into Mutants and Masterminds.
Great game. Great game.
And that was our diversion from 4th edition, was we started playing 2nd edition of Mutants and Masterminds and realized we could play any genre in that fairly easy. And when 4th edition really diverged from what we were used to for D&D, it was so easy for us to start using that system for other games, because we had played a fantasy game, we played a Dresden Files game, and then we had played some Supers games in it. And by the time we looked up, we're like, oh, Wizards of the Coast are coming out with a new edition.
Right.
Like, we had done Nerdarchy for 6 months, and we were just doing really generic content. Before we even knew there was going to be a 5e. Like, when they launched the basic rules, that's when we figured it out. I'm like, guys, D&D just did a new edition. Should we look at this?
So my husband and I almost missed it.
Yeah.
So we had been in California on a trip with my family in wine country, renting a house out there for the better part of 2 weeks. And we got back on a Friday. So we've been in California for 2 weeks. We fly back to Atlanta. Cue jet lag, and my husband's like, hey, it's DragonCon this weekend. I'm like, have fun, my ass is going to bed. Like, I'm out. And so he went to DragonCon, and when he was there, he's like, oh my gosh, there's a 5th edition, we're playing 5th edition here. And I'm like, wait, what? And so he bought the books and made a character and had fun, and he's like, oh yeah, 5th edition really works. I'm like, oh, that's good. But he was by being on California time, he was actually kind of prime time for DragonCon. It worked out very well for him.
Yeah, that was the rise of our channel. Really, it was 5e. We took a look at the basic rules, started talking about that stuff, and it really took off. And coincidentally, it happens to be our favorite edition of the game.
It is mine as well. It actually reminds me of kind of the glory days of 2nd edition, because 2nd edition was my favorite edition until we got to 5th edition. 5th is really a lot like 2nd, with like the dumb filed off of it and lessons learned from 4th edition.
Yeah,
like daily powers, at wills,
and they incorporated a lot of the cool features from every edition before. Added in inspiration, which is like kind of a meh far as role playing tool. At least the way they put it in there. The way they put it in there, I find doesn't really work, but I do like it as a tool for the GM and for the players. Well, because the way they put it in there makes you, the GM, have to know like these 3 things about all your players in the game, and to know whether or not they're... That's what I mean. But as a cool way of like, what, you're gonna have a better chance of doing this or that, and the advantage is kind of an easy mechanic.
Yeah, I use inspiration as a reward for behavior that I want to see more of at the table. So if someone does something that's very pro-social, or they make the whole table laugh by telling a joke that's not mean, like, inspiration flows fast.
Yes. We really struggled with giving it out in the beginning. So now we keep like a jar of toy pirate coins next to the DM just so we remember to give it out.
Yeah, and we've gotten a culture, at least in some of my tables, where even if I'm busy doing something and I don't recognize that something cool has just happened, somebody else at the little table will be, "That's inspiration." We have like an announcer voice, we do it in. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, here, have some inspiration." Yeah.
Absolutely, should definitely be an announcer voice.
And that actually is a lesson from Fate and Dresden Files. Like, even if you're not ever going to play Dresden Files, you should buy the Dresden Files book. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous game book. And it's got some really like eye-opening ways to do things, like their character creation system, where it's a group character creation and people in your group before you even start, is fabulous. And the idea of fate points and the fate point economy, fabulous.
The Dresden Files book is actually, for Fate, is one of the best reading books. As far as, because, like, let's face it, RPGs tend to be a bit dry to read, and that one reads really well. Yeah. I read about half of it and just stopped for some reason, because I don't know what's happened, but I used to be a super avid reader, going through a book every 2 to 3 days, and now I just can't bring myself to read stuff that I even like. It's so disappointing. I'm so disappointed in myself.
That is a real thing, and it's happened to a lot of people. And I saw some research about it on some psychology journal, that it's like we're reading so much as part of our jobs on the computer screen and as part of social media, we kind of like exhaust our desire to read on this other stuff before we get to the fun stuff.
Yeah, so I have to figure out, like, I'm almost to the point where I want to schedule like 15 minutes of reading time a day. Yeah. But we're out of time now. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been great chatting with you.
Such a pleasure.
And for everyone else, until next time, stay nerdy.
Y'all take care and stay healthy.